Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of The Light of Creation. In this episode we'll be creating a flower for monster can because I have been collecting all the monster cans that are available in Canada, and this is for the starting one from the series for all the cans that I want to make flowers for. So I've decided that I don't need to narrate every single aspect of the creation process because you will be seeing it in the video regardless. So instead I'll be utilizing all this time to share my thoughts on things I read, games I've played, and music I've listened to, anything and whatever that comes up to my mind. During the making of this particular project, which took several days, I read a couple of books in the meanwhile. The first of them was the first book in the Hunger Games Trilogy, The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. And honestly, I have missed out for so long that I haven't read this modern classic, to say the least, because the way it just jumps from one plot device to the next without any breaks. There is none or negligible amount of fluff. Like, there is no wastage of pages or words. Everything feels concise and to the point, and it just goes from story beat to story beat, like page after page. Like when I was reading it, I was just hooked. I could not keep down the book. It was so gripping. I finished the book in 2 or 3 days at max. Heck, the last day I basically read the book for 6 hours straight. It was that gripping. I haven't been gripped to a book since reading Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and that was because I was interested in Greek mythology. This book amazed me because it created a world that was interesting enough for me to forget all my projects and forget everything basically and just read for 6 hours straight. The book does an amazing job at just displaying human hope, I guess. Like, it shows how resilient human beings can be even when we ourselves will try to capture, torture, dictate over ourselves, like as shown by President Snow at the Capitol. And the resilience is definitely shown by the people in the rest of the districts, especially District 12, in the first book at least. And it's just quite amazing. Even the action is brutal because people are sent to kill children. In a nutshell, children are sent to kill each other off, all in the name of recreating the feel of failure of an uprising against the capital. That's a very fascinating idea. And the way the book ends and creates a somewhat of a cliffhanger with a romance triangle does feel a bit jarring, but knowing that it's a trilogy kinda elevates that problem. But if it were not a trilogy and just ended that way when it released, I would be quite upset just knowing that the book ended too early when things were just getting spicy. And I think that was for the benefit, because as soon as I stopped reading the book, I was quite excited about reading the second one. But what I would like to do is take a gap between series. Like, if I have begun reading the Hunger Games Trilogy, I will only read it every other book. So now that I have read the first book, I would then pick some other book, which is again departing from the genre of fiction. So after reading the Hunger Games, I picked up Sophie's World. It's sort of like an introductory text to philosophy. I've been trying to get into the subject of philosophy because it's quite intriguing to me. I find questioning stuff quite fun and interesting because human mind is interesting as well. We can come up with so many different answers. We can come to different conclusions to the same problems, and it is quite fascinating. to see how human mind works throughout history, like starting from pre-Socratic era, like the Democritus, Epicurus, and whatnot, to Socratic era, such as Plato, Aristotle, Socrates himself, to coming to modern or somewhat modern times like Berkeley, Hume, Descartes, Kant. And it's quite fascinating how few ideas are just repeating on themselves yet are different somehow. And the open nature of the subject is quite mystical, in a sense that it just captivates you. Once you start questioning stuff, you can't just go back. You want to develop your own answers, and I think that's the beauty of philosophy, because there is no right answer, and there will never be a right answer. It's always open to interpretation, and it's all what you make out of it. And it's not about finding the answers. I think philosophy as a subject is not to be studied to try to get an answer. I think it should be studied to learn the process of creating an answer, or try to come up with a conclusion, the logic behind it. The critical thinking that goes behind it is what I think is beneficial in this day and age. Because if everyone can think in terms of philosophy or philosophically, I think everyone's decision-making power or rationalizing power will increase drastically. All the while, there have been criticisms made towards the subject of philosophy, and those are valid ones as well, that it's a subject that does not have much basis. This criticism, I somewhat see how it can apply to the real world, but I don't quite agree with it, because what is useful, right? Like, just because something has an immediate effect doesn't mean that it is the only thing that's useful, Like, sure, knowing how to make stuff is fine and all, but you can improve that art of making stuff if you know mathematics, for example, right? Like, Leonardo da Vinci wouldn't have been able to make his paintings if he hadn't studied anatomy properly. He studied science so that he could perfect his art, right? So I think, one way or the other, all subjects correlate with each other. There is no superior subject. Everything is dependent on each other. Be it be math, be it be art, be it be science, be it be social science. Everything is connected. Like, science itself creates a lot of ethical questions, right? Like stem cells research or the nuclear bomb. All these ethical concerns are dealt with people who have studied philosophy, because that's an existential question at that point, right? What is life? What is meant to have power? How much control can we have? Are we the only sentient ones? Like, such questions can be only pondered upon, but can never be concluded. And it's this ongoing discussion, this ongoing debate that pulls one side to the other. But this pulling nature is what churns this ocean of knowledge to create this delicious curd of products that we like to use, right? I think that's the beautiful nature of it. while this was being made, like I spent I think 2 or 3 days behind this project, unnecessarily honestly, because I should have been able to finish it in 2 days max. Well, I'd be lazy and having other projects to do and other hobbies to attend to. I just forgot about it for the most part. Even the editing process took me almost a month because it was just me being lethargic. And all the while, I also played this game called Sifu. Now Sifu, if you haven't played, is a very hard game. And when I play a game and if I like it, I like to platinum it because I play on PlayStation. So I tried to platinum it and it took me over 6 months, I guess. I haven't checked the statistics properly, but approximately 6 months to platinum that game. And at first it was just grueling, it was unfair, it felt unfair because I was just trying to go nuts to bust, like just action, not thinking about the motive behind it. Because again, there is a lesson in the game as well, to be patient, because it is martial arts that it's portraying, kung fu at that, and it is quite a good game in that it forces you to think, it forces you to take it slow. It has this game mechanic of aging. Whenever you die, you age, and the more you age, the more powerful your attacks become, but lesser health you have at the end of it. So it's all about optimizing it, right? You can optimize it if you want, but to get the best ending or to even platinum the whole game, you need to be 25 years or younger while finishing the game. And that is a monumental task, because if you have played the game and reached a specific boss on stage 3, then you know how hard that boss can be, especially trying to no-hit run it or trying to minimize your number of deaths. Or optimally, you don't want to die until, you don't want any single death until the last stage, the sanctuary stage. But I digress. It basically taught me how to be patient and take things slowly, learn things, observe things, and take notice of minute changes. Basically be in the moment. That changed my perspective on difficult games in general. Because before this, I had attempted to platinum Demon Souls on PS5 as well. And that game is again hard as nails as well. And I haven't platinumed it yet either. But because of Sifu and the way it taught me how to take it slow, how to observe and just be patient and just keep on trying with an open mind without letting the frustration get into your head, it was truly satisfying, and I'm making progress. Just like I made progress with this flower, there had been a lot of errors that I made along the way, but most of them you won't be able to see because I sped up the footage. But nonetheless, it's quite satisfying to look at it at the end. While I was making the sepals for the flower, I had messed up initially because I painted over the blank piece of paper with this paint and then tried to fold it, but acrylic was not dried enough, so all that paint just stuck together and fused, so it was literally impossible to loosen apart, and I ended up tearing it, so I had to redo the whole thing. And that taught me, and because I was playing the game all this while, I did not feel that much frustration. Instead, I just went over, okay, like, I'll just do it again. That was satisfying. So much so that I made another one for another can, which I'll upload the video for shortly. I'll continue with reviews of 3 more books that I read during this time of making this video. I hope you enjoyed this, and see you in the next one. And enjoy the flowers in the monster can.